All right, not too long of a list for you, but we'll fire into it. The update on the Summit recycling drop-off location. First on recycling, we're up to 4,469 households. So, we're still seeing people join each and every day. We, of course, are trying to be as cost efficient as possible and make sure that the recycling program continues to be successful in terms of its efficiency, that it's actually recycling. So we continue to see that 93% clean, 7% contamination, and appreciate ECUA, and I think Vicki Campbell mentioned it, one of the board members in a meeting, that complimenting the switch off and switch on in terms of the efficiency that they're seeing out of the city. So appreciate her kind words on that. The new drop-off site will be located at the Sanitation Services Office at 100 West Leonard. If you recall, when we paused the recycling program, we had an assisted drop-off at that exact same location there, or really right around the corner. So we're going to do it on Leonard Street. So as you know, there's a Palafox side and a Leonard side. It'll be on the Leonard side. It's a little more secure fence-wise over there. And it'll allow the operation to be managed by one employee with minimal equipment cost. And we have the existing equipment on site, and of course, all of the infrastructure there on site, because it's the sanitation building and the transfer station. So the annual operating cost will be $30,000 for this. And if you recall, when we talked about this last summit, is $300,000 right now. So a 90% decrease in operational costs. Excuse me, I'll give you the exact numbers. Yeah, $258,984 is what it costs to operate the site. So our data shows that the Summit Boulevard location contamination rates are estimated at 85 to 90% contaminated, meaning that everything that is being dropped off there is going to the landfill. And one of the biggest misnomers is, someone will take a photo and with stuff piled up, and they'll say, well, you need to go more. Well, we have been going more. That's the problem. We go there 4 days a week, and then we do 6 days a week between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that's 218 cleanups a year with a 5-person crew working for 3 to 4 hours. So you can see how it adds up to $258,984 to operate that site versus the $30,000 it'll take to operate the Leonard site. There'll be signage going up this week at the Summit location announcing that relocation, and the final date is Monday, May 4th. So we're trying to give a little bit of runway for folks that are used to using it to make sure that they see the signage, and then now, of course, they'll be able to now take it to the Leonard location. Just an update on the airport. You guys may have questions on that as you see things happening around the country with long TSA lines. We have not been on the hotspot list. As a matter of fact, I don't think we've been on the hotspot list for well over a year or so, which is a great thing. Hotspot means 30 minutes of wait or more for the entire hour. We according to Matt Coughlin, our airport director, we got to probably 25 minutes recently, but we have not been on that designated TSA hotspot list. Matt just mentioned to me, typically in normal operations without anything happening at the federal government, there might be 1 or 2 airports nationally each day that are on, but he said there's a dozen currently, give or take. So we're obviously seeing that happen, the same thing you guys are seeing reported in the news at some other airports. And there can be a domino effect in terms of delays and things like that. So make sure if you are flying out that you're keeping an eye with your carrier on delays, because naturally that can happen, especially from bigger airports. But knock on wood, we've been in pretty good shape. Be mindful of spring break. Our busiest day of the year so far in 2026 was Sunday. We had 12,000 passengers, 6,000 screenings take place, and we were able to keep it still under 30 minutes. So just be mindful and make sure you're checking with your carriers, and it's always safer to be there a little bit earlier. We can confirm that the Meals for Council on Aging have returned to the Cobb Center as of yesterday morning. I know they were dropped off at 9:30. It's to an average of about 65 seniors. And so, again, that's always been our primary focus. And we're certainly appreciative of the partnership and that continuing at Cobb. So good news there. The road and rail work for the port started last week. for the road and rail rehabilitation project, and that's maintenance for the port's infrastructure that dates back to damage caused by Hurricane Sally. So, so glad to get that project up and going for all of the job creators out there. One other kind of logistical update: the Branch Properties project, the grocery store on the corner of Garden and Spring, is moving to the April ARB agenda. In case you see, hey, well, why is it on this week? Just logistical. That was their decision. They had a couple loose ends to tie up. Nothing. They fully intend to bring it forward in April. So nothing that changes the scope of the project or anything like that. Just typical logistical things to be ready to go. So in case you guys see that pulled, that's still they still intend to move forward with that. It'll just be on the April agenda. I forgot to mention Road and Rail. The current price tag with just the base bid is about $11.5 million. So pretty significant Road and Rail project. New Palafox update. You see some trees going in. Some of the cabbage palms on the extreme north and south have been put in. We're 80% complete on storm infrastructure, should be done by April 3rd. 80% on curb and gutter, done by April 24th. Irrigation is 90% complete, should be done on April 10th. And then the paver is about halfway through and should be done 100% complete by May 8th. So we have about 11,755 square feet of pavers installed on the sidewalk so far, and then about 2,200 square feet of pavers in some of those parking bays. So, making lots of headway there, and we're right about the halfway point. We might actually be a couple days past the halfway point of the incentivized completion date of May 24th.
Have you discovered the tunnels yet, Mayor?
Not yet. I was waiting for your reporting on that. If you'll let me know, if you get out there on a weekend or something and see one, please notify us.
Well, we're here. You just didn't dig deep enough.
Yeah, maybe that was intentional. Yeah, maybe we didn't. We don't want to find. We want to be intentional about what we don't find.
So Dad hid the records.
Right, they might be under there. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And then one more last note on SWAT training at the old behavioral health building on Marina Street across from the main campus is going to be Thursday from 8 to 5. There'll be a visible police presence, and it is a training activity. So just a heads up in case you get any phone calls. That's just a routine mock SWAT scenario. So that is everything I got, and happy to take your questions.
The new Leonard drop-off, I guess, will that be open 7? What will the days will be open?
Yeah, let me get you exact hours on that. It definitely will not be a 24-hour drop-off. That's part of the problem, whether it was at Summit or Leonard or anything else. It's the unassisted nature or the kind of unfettered access that is what causes people to drop their living room sets from who don't even live in the city and drive in and do that. And so let me get you, we need to get you those numbers. We'll get those today of what the proposed times are and whether it's going to be, I would imagine it's going to be kind of normal type of operating hours. But for example, let me clarify if we're open on Sundays, things like that. But yeah, we need to get that out. So we'll get you hours today on exactly what they're proposing.
Mayor, on your drawing board, is there still the possibility of an inland port?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously there's it's all about how you get it funded, and I've whether that's a partnership. Obviously, the county's got some property up there. I think probably what will move it the fastest is kind of that catalytic project. Meaning, what does Burdon want to move jobs up there? Is there something that kind of where it isn't just speculating on the land and then having access, but it doesn't have to be enough square footage proposed by a company to fill up the whole thing. I just think we kind of need that somebody to get off the training wheels and get going. That'll help move it forward faster, right? Versus going to Triumphs of the world or the federal commerce grants and things like that, and then just kind of saying, hey, we want this speculatively. So I'm wide open to it, and we have had several conversations, including with Burdon, about potentially moving jobs there. But absolutely, I think it's for the long-term health of the port. It's a must. And so how quick it happens, I think, will probably be determined by what kind of partnership we can find.
Sorry, I have
Yeah, sure.
a couple questions that you didn't discuss, but I wanted to ask, just because I've been seeing some stuff on social media about the Reverb by Hard Rock, Pensacola. I know
Yeah.
it's supposed to break ground in 2026. Can you just give like an update on that and like the progress it's going?
Yeah, so, Parcel 5, as of the last update to me from the developers is slated for, excuse me, it's slated for fall of 2026, Q3. I don't have an exact date or even, whether it's August or September. Somewhere in that time frame was the last update I've received from them. So Parcel 4, we're working through. The developers owe us some information, the city attorney's office, on that. So it's a little more vague as it pertains to the Parcel 4 proposal, and the ball's kind of in their court at this point. They're not really waiting on anything from us. So, but those are two obviously different projects that are on much different timelines. So specific to the hotel, the apartments, condos, the Parcel 5 project, including the Hard Rock, should be Q3 as of the last update.
So no rooftop bar though, right?
Oh, no, I think there is some rooftop element, restaurant element to it. And who that's going to be and all that, they'd have to tell you. But I believe the last proposal was some type of rooftop hospitality, and then also kind of like the top 2 floors being some type of conference or meeting space. And you can kind of see it on the rendering. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then I just had a question too, as far as like the blueprint for like the home ownership program and how it works exactly. How are homeowners selected and how will this address like the affordable housing crisis?
Yeah. So again, we've had repair projects. I think we've had 12 maybe in the past year. So it all depends on the color of money, so to speak, as it pertains to. So if you're speaking specifically the Hurricane Sally home repair, that has a different rubric than other dollars that might be used for the same purpose that maybe we get annually that aren't tied necessarily to a previous storm. Some of the ones that we've been announcing recently are that we went and visited with one of the tear down and rebuilds over off Wright Street. Those happen through the CRA, and they have waiting lists and things like that. That you get put on the list, you see if you qualify. And certainly we can get you as much detail as you want. I would be hesitant to recite every part of that rubric, but our CRA staff can give you kind of some of the what are the determining factors and what qualifies you, things like that. But generally speaking, you get put on a list, and as funding becomes available, we work our way down that list is ultimately. But there's typically some type of pre-qualification, be it income, be it the condition of the home. Sometimes someone applies for home repair, well, then the inspection is done and you realize that it needs to be a tear down and rebuild, given the fact that whatever that repair was going to be isn't going to solve the structural issues of the house, for example. So the one that we visited on Wright Street was one of those. So it took quite a long process. It was because it started as maybe we just need a repair, and then we got in there and we realized it was going to take much more than that. So then had to move them over to a different program. So they ultimately tore down the house, rebuilt it, and they're living there now. So anyway, there's all of those decisions and all those waiting lists run through CRA. So.
Okay.
Hey, Eric, in the past, you had talked about the importance of sort of standardizing the youth sports contracts with the city. What's your assessment of that? Are you making the kind of progress that you'd like to see?
I know we have some of those coming back in the next couple of meetings, obviously not the meeting next week, but yes and no. I feel like if you look at where we started, which is some sports having no agreements at all, I guess your question's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty. If I look at it glass half full, we're certainly happy that now we believe every league that is using one of our facilities actually has an agreement, which was not the case when I started here. So that's good. It's tough because on one hand, the most equitable thing to do is to have a uniform agreement. Unfortunately, and in fairness to the leagues themselves, every league has its own challenges, its own field time, the intensity of the use of the field, right? A football game might tear up a field a little faster than some other use, right? Or how many dates are you using it? Things like that. Baseball fields take a lot more maintenance. That you have to be more meticulous about than just mowing the grass at other fields. So I think if we haven't had fast progress to get to kind of an equitable single agreement, it's that we're trying to be mindful of the challenges. There's income challenges that with some leagues that other leagues don't have, right? Where parents and grandparents may, be on fixed incomes, and so, how you charge and how you handle and manage those things like scholarship players and things like that. So I think we're doing the best we can in the fact that we're trying to respect all of these unique needs of each league, while still bringing some level of uniformity to the contract. So we have been able to get some of that uniformity in place, but I expect as we've had individual conversations, our staff has had individual conversations with the leagues, we're trying to be in harmony of having the agreement, holding people accountable to do what they say they're going to do, but also, again, I appreciate all of these leagues very much. I mean, you think about all these volunteer parents and all that. I mean, for us to try to replicate that, and I know this comes up at council sometimes, and I know Councilman Moore and I talk about this a lot. I think we sometimes lack the gratefulness and appreciation as a community for what these leagues do. And if the city were to try to replicate that and do it themselves and not have volunteer, I mean, it would be not only exponentially more expensive, it would take a lot of bandwidth away from other things that we're doing as a Parks and Rec department. And so these are services, and we have to respect them that way, right? I mean, this is pouring into our children, into the youth of our community, getting parents to come help and make it more cost efficient to do so. So we want to respect that, and so we're trying to find the best thing that we can to make sure everybody is doing what they say they're going to do, and that we offset some of our significant cost of the upkeep of these fields. But do it in a way that certainly respects the effort of what they're putting into our children and into our community.
Would it be fair to say your view on this has sort of evolved over your time in office?
On some aspects, yes, and on some, no. Again, I think it goes back to what has remained the same is making sure everybody has an agreement and making sure that there's some level of uniformity to these agreements. That because what we've run into with lots of agreements like this in years past, or when I got into office, was lots of handshake agreements or lots of presumed, hey, you do this and we're going to do that, but it may not be written down anywhere. And I just think that's not just good selfishly for the city. I think that's good for the leagues too, right? I mean, they shouldn't have to worry about if the next mayoral administration forgetting that there was some agreement and then looking like we aren't honoring it. I think clarity is a good thing for all of us. So in that respect, that certainly hasn't changed. Trying to find the happy medium between this great service that these community leagues provide, and the taxpayers are paying a lot of money to upkeep these fields. It's a very expensive endeavor. And trying to respect the taxpayer as well, of just how do we help offset some of those costs. So I guess I've evolved in the sense of just we aren't going to have the perfect world of every agreement looking exactly the same in perpetuity, but we're trying to work through that and be as fair as we can to everybody.
So to keep up on the same topic of youth sports, if the Bay Center reimagining happens, sort of the way the consultants both sides have laid it out, this indoor field house idea that right now is built on sports tourism, do you think it would help the city, their ability to produce infrastructure for youth sports in some sort of shared agreement and also shared funding?
Are you speaking to if there was a multi-purpose, like a convention center, sports facility?
Well, whatever it turns out to be, there's a lot of political movement on the field house idea of 18 volleyball courts, 12 basketball courts. But that would certainly go a long way toward the city's stock of basketball courts.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. I think I can certainly just speak for the administration and just speak to the WT report. But again, I think I mentioned to you guys, one of the interesting things I gathered from our conversation and reading the report was the consideration. I've always been a little concerned about trying to be jack of all, master of none. Of if you try to do a convention center that's maybe not well executed in a sports facility that's not well executed in one building. I had some initial, nothing but speculative concern of, well, can you marry those things and make it effective? But interestingly enough, our report really fed into the idea that one of the major advantages of doing the mixed facility is getting the hotel and getting private investment to pencil, right? Because naturally, if you have both, that's just that many more days where it's being used. Versus only being one or the other. So filling up as many of the 365 days as possible is good for the investment. It's good for downtown. It's good for bed tax. It's good for sales tax. Everything else. And they certainly have assured, and they give examples in the study they provided us of cities that have been able to have both. And so. That's an encouraging sign, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So, if that's what our market supports, if that's what the county supports, if that's what the council supports, I certainly would be interested to go down that path and see if that's something that we can make work. And really just as interested to see how you make it work. Is it convention on one floor and sports on another floor? Is it the same space? And how do these things literally marry together? It'll be interesting to develop as we move along.
Mayor, on the port project, is it contained completely inside the port? Will there be any disruptions outside the port?
No, not that I'm aware of. There's obviously some inconveniences that'll have to be worked around with the tenants because of the work taking place inside the fence line. But as it pertains to citizens that aren't employed there or anything like that, anything outside the fence line, no inconveniences I'm aware of, or any. If you recall, Jim, that the parking lot, the ferry landing, all that is like technically port property, even though it's not inside the fence. So, but even with that, no work happening over there. Everything inside the fence.
So that project's underway, but the council hasn't approved the part of it that's coming from the old Sally grant. I assume that's going to them next week. What is that still on track? And
Yeah.
What if they don't approve it? What happens?
Yeah. So thanks for I'll clarify that. So there's already several $1 million. I can get you the exact number that have already been allocated. And if you recall, that was part of the same Hurricane Sally bucket of money that came from HUD CDBG that had to be low income qualified. And the point I made in a previous meeting when it was brought up that where it was questioning the value to low income residents, we wouldn't have even received this money if the port didn't meet that qualification in terms of job creation and helping low-income residents of the city. So that money's already been allocated. So point is they can go ahead and move forward because we have the base bid. We have the money for the base bid of the project. The $2.3 million in exchange will allow those alt bids to get completed and let the entire project get finished versus just the base portion of it. So that's why we're able to go ahead and move forward with the project now, and then if the 2.3 is approved by council, then we would be able to fund the alt bids as well.
Mayor, the city has 2 votes on the governance board for the library. You have
Okay.
1, the council has 1, so it's 2 out of the 5.
Uh-huh.
The board unanimously listed their candidates, the 2 top candidates, to be the library service director, and West Marino chose the 3rd candidate. Any thoughts on that process?
Not much. I think, I'm not going to speak to the decision made or the what's or why's behind it. I can understand if you're on the board having a recommendation and it not being approved, but I can also, as the executive of this government, sometimes there's decisions that made that, on its face may not make sense, but have some why behind it. And I have certainly not talked to Wes directly, nor would I be Monday morning quarterbacking or second guessing ultimately a decision that rests with him. So, I've got enough 18 city departments and lots of projects. I haven't spent a lot of time worrying about one that isn't necessarily in our purview. Libraries are important, for our community, no doubt about that. But I'm not read in or clued in enough on the what or why. I've been over here working on these city issues, so just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, following up on that, I guess the city, I think it was only about 10 years ago that they handed over the governance of the library to the county.
Yeah.
And the city, I think, owns 2 of the libraries,
Mm-hmm.
the property itself. And does that raise any red flags for you that kind of the board of governance that the city has an interest in was essentially overridden by the county?
Well, no, not necessarily. All I know since I've been here, I don't have the previous experience. I know Councilman Baer mentioned it in the council meeting last week, and his opinion on the matter that we used to control it, and his version, which I would just take at his word because he was there. I'm not 100% sure, but was ultimately that the mayor at the time, to help cut staff or had moved it over to the county. I'd leave for you guys to fact check, but I'm not really up on what it was previously. I would say the only thing that was kind of a weird situation for us since I've been mayor with the libraries is that part of this agreement is that we still pay some of the capital repairs. So that was something that right after Hurricane Sally, so there had been damage to the downtown library that, so you could imagine that was kind of an interesting read-in for me is to say, well, wait a second, we don't operate it, we don't control it, but then if there's a certain bill of a certain size that comes to the city, then we pay it, which is fine. That's part of being a team and collaborating, but kind of off the wall, be like, wait, what? We pay this chunk of a building that we don't operate? That's weird. So that's really been my only little minor experience of kind of how that arrangement works, and I'm not really accustomed to anything other than that. And I can say, obviously, I know it's been in the news based on the decision of leadership, but we have not really experienced any operational issues or complaints or anything like that as it pertains to day-to-day library issues that hit my desk. So if that's a good measurement, I kind of like to joke in our office sometimes. The best compliment we get is no emails. Meaning we don't get a lot of emails saying, "Hey, the city's running just right, not too this way, not too that way." So I like that we aren't getting a lot of emails on new Palafox right now, and I like that we don't get whole lot of emails, or complaints about how the library runs. So from that aspect, just knowing what I know in these 3.5 years, it seems that operationally to be running fine. Anything else? All right, guys, thanks so much.